Probably the worst part of overthinking is how much of a shield it is. Hey y'all, I am Victorបំ. I help provide insight to empower, and I wanted to talk about overthinking and thinking in general. So for a lot of people nowadays, I've seen this manifest as using our thoughts to explain things away, sure, but behind that underneath all of the thinking, there's this maladaptive response, something in our programming that hasn't adjusted well to living and feeling safe in the world at large. There's a lot of things going on, and like the mind just naturally wants to attach itself to the news, to drama, to toxicity, so that there is something that matches the feeling. Thinking oftentimes is just there. It's not, it's kind of like, it's just kind of hovering around. But beneath that, always beneath that, is a feeling. What is the feeling? And a lot of the times the feeling is simply, again, not feeling safe in the world. So from there, we look for things to match that feeling so that the feeling makes sense. It's not an outside in thing, this human experience, it's an inside out thing. You may have heard of this in, I don't know, psychological, maybe like woo, spiritual, manifesty type circles, but in truth, there is a feeling. Usually correlating, running in parallel to our formative experience. So what we went through as humans in early development that helped us shape how best to survive and how best to navigate towards purpose and pleasure, or mainly away from that feeling of being disconnected from safety. So either avoidant or hopefully maybe pursuant, I don't know, driven towards something rather than constantly driven away from something. Because if I'm driven away from this thing, if I'm avoiding pain or discomfort, then I'm always trying to dance around it, and that's exhausting. And so what happens when I get exhausted is I burn out and collapse and fall closer and closer to the thing that I'm resisting. Now, if the thing that I'm resisting comes up as is natural in a transitional, like transitory phase in our lives, which I find myself in now, there's a thing that I want, that like the purpose or the pleasure that I'm driven towards, that I am allowing for myself. And there's the habit, the well-worn path of avoiding pain, which is how I learned to, what I learned is that there is only pain, there's only suffering, and then sometimes maybe there's like good stuff. And so I have to, again, dance around and away from the thing, but I'm fixating on it. So now, because that path is so well worn, it's difficult and uncomfortable as fuck to get out of that groove. It's such a deep groove that I have to climb out of it and start writing. I mean, physically writing, but also like speaking, also walking the talk of what I'm driving myself or being driven towards, which is purpose, fulfillment, gratitude, really. And the words "fake it till you make it" came in during this, during me speaking, exposition, whatever. But part of it can be fake it till you make it. Like, I think behind that, and maybe a more effective way of looking at that, is Where does X feeling, purpose, pleasure, joy, gratitude live in my body? When I say gratitude, what sensations do I feel in my body? What is the somatic bodily experience? Now that I know where that is, or when I start to explore that, inquire into that, one, that's getting me out of this groove. So there's like, as soon as I start thinking of like gravity, and especially in the earlier days of doing this work, what would immediately come up is, no, this is why you shouldn't feel grateful, and this is why the world is such shit. All the reasons that I was so, like, all the things I was used to thinking came up against reasons to be grateful. And that's just part of the deal, unfortunately. The way I like to think of this is like, I came into this life as consciousness, and that is all running against this programming, this hardware, this software that calls itself Victor. Hi, that's me. I don't know if I did an intro. I did an intro. And now I'm having to rewrite programs away from what all boils down to the survival instincts, right? Why are people toxic? Why do people gaslight? Why do people hurt fucking people? Is because on some level they don't feel safe within themselves. They're insecure. They lack security within themselves. And so they lash out. Gaslighting is like being afraid to be wrong. And so if you ever point out an error that a gaslighter would make, they automatically start explaining it away and why they were ultimately right. Why? Because they were afraid to be wrong. That's the most rudimentary part of it, and like healing it. I think I've made a video for that already, but I'll make one. I'll make another one. It's just creating a safe space for them to be wrong. Now I'm off track. But it takes time, effort, sure, but I think most of all, patience. Again, like for me, patience lives like back here somewhere. Call it the patience node. And I can feel it right now, so I feel into it. That makes me want to breathe. That makes me want to slow things down. So now I'm like getting into the train of thought, the groove of patience. And I'm like, now just naturally, I'm like gravitating towards gratitude. I feel grateful that I can take this moment. It's a snowball effect. And whatever thoughts you feed are the ones that are going to snowball and gain the most momentum. Yeah, like one of my brothers from the service is like coming up right now, and he's having a hard time. And it's helping me learn to teach this, because if other people are struggling and I care about them, suddenly I want to share what it is that helped me. And different strokes for different folks, but I really believe that there's a bedrock to this. There's a baseline. There's like what I call meta skills or meta insights, where like at the deepest root of things, of beliefs, of behaviors, of psychology, there are things that we can do, like breathing, like observing our thoughts instead of gravitating or like attaching or identifying with them. Movement, play, such a big one, right? Like play looks different to me than it does to you, or that it might at least. But play is one of those meta skills. Breathing, I breathe differently, and how I need to breathe in any given moment to regulate my physiology or whatever is going to be different for you, but we can both breathe. We can both if this is the thought right here, just kind of drift back and away from it. I gotta get back to class. But if this is bringing up any questions or any thoughts, please drop them in the comments, like, subscribe. Love you. Peace.